A wealthy German family, John, his wife Esther, and their two children Alba and Philip, arrive in France for their annual summer retreat. But this time, the streets are filled with protesters demanding higher wages due to soaring inflation. Despite the unrest, the family reaches their estate, a beautiful home that once belonged to Esther's parents. After settling in, they enjoy the sun and relax. John and Esther share a peaceful moment together, but their tranquility is interrupted when Esther hears strange creaking sounds coming from above. She assumes it's just some critters. Meanwhile, at a busy restaurant called La Fontaine, a group of servers chat and work. One of them notices the family walking by and asks Theodora, a woman nearby, for her opinion. She glances at the family and coldly says, "Not rich enough." That evening, John and his family dine at La Fontaine. Alba entertains everyone with magic card tricks, making her parents laugh. During the meal, Esther receives a phone call about her work. She runs a digital marketing firm for IT companies and seems frustrated as she talks to her assistant. Theodora, who is carrying a towel basket, notices the heated conversation. After dinner, Theodora rushes out of the restaurant and hops onto the back of a man's bike. They ride through the streets, but suddenly, the man stops, pulls out a knife, and cuts Theodora's arm. Meanwhile, John and his family head back to their estate after a few drinks. As they drive, John enjoys the distinct lavender smell in the air and admires the unique architecture of France. But distracted by the view, he doesn't see someone standing by the side of the road until it's too late. John quickly gets out of the car to check on the injured person. It's Theodora, and her wound looks serious. John suggests taking her to the hospital, but since he's been drinking, Esther advises against it. Instead, she asks Theodora for her name, and after a brief hesitation, she answers, Theodora. Esther offers to take her to their home instead, assuring her that they have a first aid kit. Theodora hesitates, thinking a hospital would be better, but eventually agrees when Esther points out how far away it is. At their home, Esther quickly retrieves the first aid kit and tends to Theodora's wound. As they sit together in the living room, Theodora notices the unfinished plates on the table and warns them not to leave dirty dishes out overnight, as it might attract animals. John brushes it off, explaining that they're just on vacation and their maid had to stay home because of family issues. After tending to Theodora, Esther quietly tucks $300 under the lamp, leaving it there for her. The next morning, John plays outside while Esther receives a call from her friend I but ignores it. Meanwhile, Esther discovers that Theodora has taken the money and left without any trouble. She feels relieved and happily announces it to the family. However, Philip isn't impressed, thinking it was nothing more than a bribe. As John prepares fish for dinner, the doorbell rings. Alba tells him it's Theodora. Hesitant, John opens the gate to let her inside. Theodora compliments their house, then reveals that she lost her job due to her injury, since it posed a hygiene risk. She subtly implies that it's because of their actions, and suggests becoming their maid for the summer. John isn't sure about the idea, but Esther agrees without further discussion. Now working as their maid, Theodora begins unpacking her things in the room assigned to her. She casually offers Alba a cigarette, but Alba, shocked, refuses, reminding her there's no smoking in the house. Philip, however, opens the window and dismisses his sister's concern. Theodora shows him how to use a lighter, and Alba watches in fascination but refuses to try it herself. Theodora asks Philip if he speaks French, but he shakes his head. Alba jumps in, saying their mother considers French useless. Theodora gently disagrees, suggesting that knowing French is important when living in France. Later that night, John is woken by a strange noise. He goes outside and finds a dead rodent at the entrance to the estate. He's startled when Theodora suddenly appears beside him. Calmly, she says that rodents are a plague and should be exterminated. She hands John a rod, urging him to kill the animal. After he does, he looks up to find Theodora gone. The next day, Theodora places her lighter in Alba's room before starting her cleaning duties. As she vacuums, she notices John and Philip leaving with a bike. Suddenly, the vacuum stops. Esther has pulled the plug. Esther complains that the noise is giving her a headache and tells Theodora to clean the upstairs rooms instead. She also gives her a shopping list for dinner, saying that John will take her to the store later. While cleaning, Theodora asks Alba if she wants to help her cook, but Alba isn't interested. Noticing a Harry Potter book on the table, Theodora flips through it and playfully points at a character, calling him an inappropriate name in French. She continues with other characters, labeling them with similar inappropriate words. Alba doesn't understand the meaning but repeats the words. Theodora looks at her warmly and admits, "I like you." After shopping, the three of them return home. While folding laundry, Theodora asks Philip about his bike. He proudly tells her it's made of carbon, and weighs just 7.4 kilograms. That evening, as Theodora slices meat for dinner, she starts eating it raw. She even teaches Alba how to cut the meat properly. Later, their family friends Aki and Cora arrive with their son. During their conversation, Esther fondly recalls her wedding day, mentioning that it rained but was still beautiful. She says she feels incredibly lucky. Philip, however, remarks sarcastically, "Not everyone is as lucky, like servers, for example." Aki quickly interrupts, telling Philip that his parents work hard for what they have. To change the subject, Esther asks Aki if he's read an article written by her husband, John, about pollen allergens. Aki, a scientist like John, becomes serious and offers his help if needed. Esther is puzzled by his concern. Later, when she asks John about it, he brushes it off, saying, "There's nothing to worry about." The next day, the family takes a boat to a nearby beach. Philip films the outing and seems captivated by Theodora's beauty. When they reach the shore, everyone rushes into the water except for Esther. Theodora notices and asks her why she isn't joining them. Esther replies simply, "The sea scares me." Later, while Esther talks to her assistant on the phone, Theodora discreetly steals Esther's phone. Alba catches her but says nothing. When Esther realizes her phone is missing, she panics, insisting that she needs to stay in contact with her office. Theodora calmly offers to help, saying she knows where to find a store. The two leave the beach together. After buying a new phone, Esther continues her conversation with her assistant. Once the call ends, she shares a cigarette with Theodora. Esther has a seemingly perfect life, with a good family and everything anyone could ask for, but she feels a deep sense of emptiness. She opens up to Theodora, revealing that sometimes she wishes she could just disappear. Theodora, always calm and understanding, encourages her to take a break from it all and disappear for a while. Later that night, Esther joins her husband John in bed. He begins to kiss her, but she stops him, telling him that she has already taken a sleeping pill. John, disappointed, says nothing but pulls away. The next morning, while Theodora cleans outside, she notices John preparing to take his bike for a ride. Casually, she mentions that his bike is made of carbon and weighs 7.4 kilograms. John, impressed by her knowledge, invites her to join him. They take a break by the side of the road and Theodora sensually eats a piece of fruit, making John uncomfortable but also intrigued. Back at the estate, Esther notices her son, Philip, becoming unusually comfortable around Theodora. She doesn't think much of it and returns to work when her daughter, Alba, suddenly confesses to seeing Theodora steal Esther's phone. Esther confronts Theodora, but she denies it, and Alba runs off in frustration. Esther apologizes for Alba's behavior but is left uneasy. Later, Theodora scratches at an old wound on her arm, and Esther, feeling guilty, rushes over with a first aid kit. Trying to make amends, she invites Theodora to dinner and even offers her a dress. Theodora smiles and accepts. At the restaurant, Esther talks about how she has no right to feel unhappy with everything she has. Theodora, though, calmly replies, "Everyone has the right to be unhappy," and looks at her with genuine concern. Theodora also reveals that Alba was the one who took Esther's phone and is hiding it in her closet. She suggests that Alba might be acting out of jealousy because Esther is too focused on her work. Esther agrees and says that Alba has always been envious of everything. As dinner goes on, Esther comments that the dress looks better on Theodora than it does on her and gives it to her as a gift. Theodora suggests they go to a bar after. At the bar, Theodora introduces Esther to her friends, including a tourist named Amber. After some time, Esther finds herself standing alone when a handsome man named Lucian approaches her. He offers her a drink, and although she initially hesitates, she accepts. However, she immediately finds the drink disgusting and doesn't shy away from telling Lucian. After studying him for a moment, she asks if they've met before. There's something familiar about him. He denies it, and as the night continues, they begin dancing closely. The chemistry between them undeniable. Later, the group decides to leave the bar and head to the beach. After some persuasion, Esther agrees to join Lucian in the water. As they wade into the sea, Esther notices a shadowy figure swimming on the surface before it disappears under the water. The next morning, the group enjoys fresh meat by the shore. Esther comments that the steak tastes unlike anything she's ever had before. However, she soon wonders where Amber is. The others exchange uneasy glances before simply telling her that she's gone. Esther and Theodora return to the estate, and Esther thanks Theodora for a wonderful time. Outside, Esther spots Aki with his son and Alba. Aki tells Alba to have her father call him back and then leaves. Later that day, John vents to Theodora about his wife, calling her selfish and self-centered. Theodora, in a smooth and almost calculated manner, reassures him that Esther is nothing without him, that John is the intelligent and hardworking one. Meanwhile, back at the estate, Esther finds her missing phone hidden in Alba's closet. She confronts Alba, who nonchalantly mentions seeing Theodora take a pair of Esther's underwear from the closet. Esther, hurt, tells Alba to stop lying, but the girl runs off again. Finally, Esther confronts John about his research publication. He admits that his superiors don't believe his findings and that he's about to be fired. He accuses Esther of only caring about her success and not his. The tension between them is thick as they both feel misunderstood. That night, Theodora enters Esther's room with lemonade and a slip of paper from Lucian, who wrote about her beauty and his desire to meet her again. Meanwhile, Alba, feeling neglected, asks if she can sleep with Philip, but he refuses and tells her to go away. The next morning, Esther decides to run away with Lucian. She hops onto his bike, and they ride off into the sunset, leaving everything behind. During breakfast, Theodora joins the family and John asks her to sit down. She casually asks if her friends can visit, and John agrees. When he asks her to pour the coffee, she simply places the flask beside him instead. She invites her friends inside and they all sunbathe together. Later, Cora arrives with a message from Esther saying she needed some time away and had asked Cora to look after the children. John reads the message and is stunned. It turns out Cora has been secretly seeing John behind Aki's back, which explains why Aki has been calling him so much. Cora accuses Theodora of manipulating John, but he dismisses her claims. As she leaves, Cora kisses John, but it's clear she's frustrated. At the same time, Esther is enjoying herself with Lucian. Later that night, Theodora enters Alba's room and gently pats her head, something Alba has been craving. They talk about Harry Potter, and for a moment, Alba feels close to Theodora. At midnight, Philip sneaks a peek inside Theodora's room and notices she has very few clothes. He takes a picture but is caught. Embarrassed, he runs off and hops on his bike to cool down. Back at Lucian's place, Esther notices a terrible smell coming from a fridge full of meat. She asks him about it, but he brushes it off, saying it's for future barbecues. The next day, Theodora invites John to her friend Estelle's birthday party, but he declines, saying he needs to take care of the kids. Meanwhile, Alba, excited, shows John that she has finally learned how to use a lighter, but when she offers it to him, he takes it away, saying it's dangerous. She's disappointed but hands it over. At Estelle's party, Esther meets a man who tells her that Estelle works at a hotel bar and makes excellent cocktails. He also points out Lucian, revealing that he works there too. Esther's heart sinks, realizing that she doesn't know much about the man she's been spending time with. Later, in the bathroom, the sink suddenly bursts with blood, and Esther runs out, horrified. She's then stopped by Theodora, who reveals the shocking truth. She was never Esther's friend, nor was she ever a maid. As Esther tries to process this, Lucian attacks her, and before she can react, the group joins in, devouring her. Back at the estate, Theodora and her friends are having fun in the pool when John interrupts, scolding her for inviting guests over. She apologizes and promises it won't happen again. He then encounters Cora, who seems to be leaving. John asks her to stay a little longer, but she's frustrated with Theodora and tells him to throw her out. Cora leaves, and John climbs up to the attic, frustrated by the noise. When he gets there, Theodora and her friends arrive, and they kill him with the same rod John had used earlier to kill a rodent. Sometime later, Philip arrives at the estate and notices Cora's car. He sees Alba with Theodora and enters the house. After microwaving some meat, he finds a ring inside it, realizing with horror that he may have just eaten his parents. Meanwhile, Theodora and her friends leave, taking Alba with them, leaving the estate behind. And to not leave a great story behind, I recommend you click on my recaps on the right. Drop a like and subscribe for future uploads. Grab your popcorn, enjoy yourself, and see you soon, my friend.